All right, today we're jumping into a huge, huge challenge in the IT world. I mean, how on earth do you manage thousands of computers all at once without physically running from desk to desk? Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, just put yourself in the shoes of an IT admin for a second. You've got this one tiny security setting you need to change. Sounds easy, right? Except you have to apply it to 1,000 different computers. Going to each one, that's not just a pain, that's an absolute nightmare. There's got to be a better way, right?
And of course, there is. The answer is this incredibly powerful tool right at the core of Windows Server called Group Policy. This is the magic wand that transforms that management nightmare we just talked about into a smooth, centralized, do-it-all from one place kind of process.
So, the heart and soul of group policy is something called a group policy object, or you'll hear it called a GPO. The easiest way to think about a GPO, it's literally a digital rulebook. It's just a collection of all the specific rules and settings that you want to push out to a whole group of users or computers.
Okay, so how does this whole rulebook thing actually work? Well, it's a pretty straightforward three-step deal. First, you create the GPO. That's like getting your blank rulebook. Next, you edit it. You write the actual rules inside. And finally, you link that rulebook to what's called an organizational unit, or OU. An OU is just a fancy name for a container, a way to group things together, like, say, the sales department or all the computers in the marketing team.
And you can get really specific with these rules. For example, you could whip up a GPO that says, nope, these users can't touch the control panel. Or maybe you have a supercritical server and you create a security policy that says only people in the administrators group are even allowed to log on to that machine. That's the kind of granular control we're talking about.
Okay, but here's where it starts to get interesting and a little complicated. In any big company, you're not just going to have one GPO. You'll have tons of them. So a user in the sales department gets their own rulebook, but then there's a different rulebook for the whole company. So what happens when those two rulebooks say opposite things? Who wins?
Well, the whole system is built on a really clear hierarchy. By default, these policies are inherited. The best way to picture it is like a waterfall. The policies you apply way up at the top, say to a big employees group, they just naturally flow down and apply to all the smaller departments nested underneath, like sales.
But what about a tie? What if two conflicting policies are linked to the exact same department? Windows has a tiebreaker for this, and it's called link order. It's a little counterintuitive, so listen closely. It processes the GPOs starting from the highest number and works its way down. So in this case, GPO 1 with a link order of 2 gets applied first. Then GPO 3 with a link order of 1 gets applied second. And because GPO 3 was the last one to touch the settings, its rules win. It just overwrites anything GPO 1 said. So remember, in this system, the last one applied wins the fight.
And this is where admins get even more power to fine-tune things. A department, an OU, can decide to block inheritance. They can basically put up a shield and say, nope, we don't want those rules from above. But there's a counter move. A policy from higher up can be enforced. Think of an enforced policy as a battering ram that is so important it just smashes right through any of those shields.
Yeah, an enforced policy is the ultimate trump card. It's like a federal law that overrides a local one. It is absolutely non-negotiable. And you can even see it in the management console. It gets this little padlock icon right next to it, which is the perfect visual cue that says, hey, this rule is locked in. It's absolute, and nobody down the line can block it.
So this is all awesome for getting total control, but imagine having to create these super complex rule books from scratch every single time. That would be a massive waste of time, right? So how do admins stay efficient and consistent when they're managing dozens, maybe even hundreds of these GPOs?
The answer? It's called starter GPOs. And these things are an admin's best friend. Seriously, they're basically templates. So instead of starting with a blank page every single time, you can start with a pre-configured template that already has all your baseline, standard, everyday settings ready to go.
So for example, you could have a starter GPO for new employees that automatically locks their taskbar and gets rid of the run menu. Or maybe you have another one for all computers that makes sure any new printers just get published automatically. It saves an unbelievable amount of time, and just as importantly, it helps cut down on simple human error.
Okay, so we've seen how these GPOs are made, how they fight it out when they conflict, and how you can use templates to be more efficient. But way up at the very, very top of this entire hierarchy, there is one single GPO that rules them all. And that is the default domain policy. This one is linked to the entire domain. That means, by default, its rules apply to every single user and every single computer on the network. It's not just a rule book, it's the Constitution. It is the foundational law for the entire digital organization.
But you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And the best practice here is crystal clear. You should only ever, and I mean ever, configure account policies in this GPO. We're talking about things like password rules and account lockout settings. And that's it. You start messing with other stuff in here, and you can cause massive, unexpected problems across your entire network. Seriously, don't do it.
And these rules, these account policies, are absolutely critical for your network security. This is where the big decisions are made. How long do passwords have to be? Do they need to be complex, with symbols and numbers? How many old passwords should the system remember so you can't reuse them? And what happens when someone tries to log in and fails too many times? Should we lock their account out for, say, 30 minutes? All that critical stuff lives here.
So there you have it. We started with a pretty simple problem, right? How to manage a bunch of computers. And we ended up with this powerful hierarchical system of GPOs that lets admins manage thousands of them. It's really like the invisible scaffolding that holds the whole thing together, making sure everything is secure, consistent, and orderly across the entire company.
So, the next time you log into a computer, maybe at work or at school, just take a second to remember that there's this incredibly complex web of policies running behind the scenes, literally shaping your entire digital experience. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? What other invisible rules are out there, shaping your digital world?